We continue today to delve into the realms of Series 10, and this time we're reviewing Thin Ice. No, we're not, we're reviewing Thick Ice, which is written by Sarah Dollard, who last series wrote Face the Raven, which was absolutely fucking appalling. But hey, it was one of the only times in Series 9 where Clara actually felt like a character, and an interesting one at that. And the Doctor was actually written in a consistent way for once. And he actually felt like the 12th Doctor, and not a wannabe Matt Smith clone. And that was pretty nice as well. So if I'm gonna make a guess on this episode's quality, judged from the last one, surprisingly, I think this episode is gonna be better. Trust me, I'm just as shocked as you. Because I've actually never liked this episode, and I did used to like Face the Raven. But this one? Nah. I always thought this story was shit, but the character stuff was great. But seeing as how Face the Raven was ruined because it was forced to tie into the finale, and it probably would have been fine if it wasn't, this story has a higher chance of being better, because it doesn't have to tie into the bullshit finale. Excluding some bullshit vault scene this episode has, but, well, probably anyway, I can't remember. And hey, the last two previous episodes have been pretty bad with good character writing as well. So let's hope that this episode keeps up the good streak. I think it will, because I'm pretty sure this episode is better than the pilot. So let's find out. So, as we saw at the end of How Do You Do Fellow Kids, the Doctor and Bill have landed at the Great Frost Fair in London 1814. And right off the bat, we get something done here about Bill's race a lot better than the Shakespeare Code handled it. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. But the way they handled Bill's race in this episode is pretty good. And I like how they don't really shy away from the issue of the past, because in the Shakespeare Code, maybe just because it was written by the human thumb, no, but in the Shakespeare Code, it's one of the elements in the episode that was just handled pretty poorly, because they don't really delve into the issue much. They just occasionally bring it up, and then the rest of the episode we get random cringe lines from Shakespeare. Which I think for a character as smart as him, he's more likely to not just be straight up racist, but it's still just a bit... bleh.
It's political correctness gone mad.
And I think this episode handles it quite well. But it isn't perfect either, but it's definitely better than how the Shakespeare Code does it. Not that this episode is even close to being the same quality as that one, but hey. And to be fair, this Shakespeare Code... it wouldn't have really fit in the tone of that story. This time around, the story is about the value of human life, so it's a lot more fitting here than it would be in a story about Shakespeare. The Doctor and Bill's banter in this episode starts off well, by Bill asking about the butterfly effect, and the Doctor gives her a pretty comedic answer about her friend called Pete, which he made up, which is pretty funny and charming. And I do like how the Doctor is just beyond caring about stuff like this at this point, because he just lives and breathes changing history, and he just seems so visibly done with Bill when she's so hesitant to take a flyer, which is a pretty good moment for her character too, along with her first stepping on the Thames, you fucking idiot. This is what I get for not being London, born and raised. Which is a pretty good character moment for her too, along with her stepping on the Thames, saying she's going to try everything and adding more endearment onto this already lovable character. After a couple scenes of the two enjoying themselves at the fair, including the Doctor robbing a conman, which was a pretty funny moment, they talk about the lights under the Thames, which likely belong to this ugly thing. And we then get a scene of the Doctor being robbed by these two little shits, which is just... ugh, why? I do actually like that the Doctor doesn't buy their bullshit even for a second and immediately sees through their con, and compliments it. Yet, on that exact same note, he lets the little shits rob him a second later, which is just... it just completely shatters my immersion for the scene instantly. How the fuck is this giga chat of a man...
Self-destruction is against my basic program. Murder is against mine. You are stronger than you look.
I'm hoping you are too. This is over. Are you capable
of admitting that.
Gonna get overpowered by getting kicked by a teenage girl and a kid who looks like he's about 7. And these kids aren't exactly well fed either, so they're not gonna be very strong. After a deficient chase scene, that dumbass kid gets himself killed for some reason despite the fact they're being chased. He just stops to look at the pretty lights. Is this the cognitive functions of the average Marvel viewer? So the dumb shit dies, and instead of saving him, the Doctor grabs his Sonic, which is a really intriguing scene to look at, and the way that Bill challenges him on this is excellent, and leads into probably the best scene Sarah Dollard has written for the Doctor ever. The difference in moral standards for both the Doctor and Bill in this scene causes excellent juxtaposition, which makes it super engaging to watch as you understand where both of the characters stand and where they're coming from. This is Bill's first time seeing someone die, so naturally she's very angry and distressed, while the Doctor has seen this so many times before that he sees no difference in someone dying in front of him and someone who's already dead, which is a really morbid way of looking at it, but considering who he is and what he's done in his life, there's no wonder this is how he looks at it, considering he is an alien after all. And this is actually a consistent part of 12's character as well, because this is how he was in Series 8.
Ross, swallow that. What is it? Trust me. Now what?
What did you give him?
Oh, just a spare power set, but I can track the radiation signature. I need to know where they dumped the bodies.
I thought you were saving him!
He was dead already. I was saving us.
Series 9 kinda fucked with the moral standard a bit because of a shielder, but I'd like to forget that that plot contrivance ever happened. And the moment of Bill challenging the Doctor on people he's killed and if he actually even still cares was fucking great. And I like how the Doctor challenges her right back by saying that in over 2,000 years he hasn't had the time for the luxury of outrage, and that's why he has to move on. Which is true, because if the Doctor lingers on every death caused by him, more people would die and nothing would get done, which is just, it's great. This is a great way of looking at it. And Pearl Mackie's performance in this scene is brilliant. The way she makes her voice sound scared, shaky and angry here is excellent. It makes her feel so just real. I honestly didn't realize how alien and non-human Clara felt until I finished reviewing Series 9, because before I came to review Series 10, I rewatched Series 1 again to recover from the rage of Hell Bent, and now that I'm watching Series 10, which, despite its flaws, early series Bill definitely isn't one of them, because she's easily Moffat's best female companion out of the 3, and it definitely doesn't help Clara's case that both Billie Piper and Pearl Mackie are just so much better actors than she is, and they can convey emotion in a way that's much more natural and realistic, instead of it feeling tacked on or forced. The one thing I don't actually like about this scene itself is the luxury of outrage line, because while yes, in a technical sense, he's right, the Doctor doesn't get to linger on every single kill or every single death caused by him, but to act as if he's never been outraged is bullshit. The Doctor has outrages all the fucking time.
And I've never had the time for the luxury of outrage.
Powerless! Look at you. The great space dustbin. How does it feel?
And I've never had the time for the luxury of outrage.
Alright, so it's my turn! Then kill me! Kill me if it'll stop you attacking these people!
And I've never had the time for the luxury of outrage.
No! But these people are out! Out!
I can do whatever the hell I like. You've read the stories. You know who I am. And in all of that time, did you ever hear anything about anyone who stopped me?
Rid the universe of your filth! Why don't you just die? Then do it! Do it! Just do it! Do it! Fine! But me? I could do so much more! So much more!
And I've never had the time talking to you for the luxury of outrage.
But it's not fair!
But besides that bullshit line, that was a truly fantastic scene, exploring the Doctor and Bill's morals and mindset in such an interesting way. As bad as Sarah Dollard is with plot, she is an excellent character writer for this show. Which honestly, despite not liking either of her episodes, I honestly do wish that she comes back one day. Who knows? Maybe if her work was redrafted a bit more, she could make a great episode. Here's hoping anyway. And edit note, this was written before Russell was announced to come back. Russell, please, like, when you were in charge, you had the fucking reins over everyone. You looked at these scripts and you were like, nah, Chief, I don't like that. I'ma fix that. But yo, imagine a Sarah Dollard and Russell T Davies script together. The best character writer for the show ever, with a good character writer who struggles a bit with plot. I'm just saying, they could make some banger episodes. Russell, please. Please. Unfortunately, following that scene, we get a much worse version of Nancy from the Empty Child two-parter, who's honestly that much of a forgettable character that I'm just gonna call her Worse Nancy. And co. Like, seriously, one of her friends just died, and she doesn't even really seem that fussed. Nancy was always on edge in the story she's in, because her brother died, and he was the threat of the story. While obviously Worse Nancy wouldn't react as severely since this was her friend and not her brother/son, but we still could have got more than nothing. The Doctor then miraculously conjures up several pies, even though we only seen him take one before, so he could shut the little shits up. However, I do actually really like this moment between Bill and Worse Nancy, because it shows Bill's character grown in this story alone. Because once she calmed down and accepted what the Doctor did, she took the advice he gave her in the scene.
They were dead already.
Morally and practically, that is not a useful distinction. Unlearn it.
I care, Bill, but I move on.
I moved on.
Great little character stuff like this just makes me smile, and it's something that I was so desperately looking for in Series 9. And Series 10 so far has been littered with loads of them, which is a really refreshing thing to see. And since these episodes themselves aren't even very good, it's making this series a lot easier to get through than I thought it would be. Bill has grown more in these 3 episodes than Clara did in all 12 of Series 9. Lol.
Latest.
My hair is cringing.
Awesome.
Please stop.
This right here is my favorite thing, ever. In the history of forever. I think about this every day. I think about this all night long. I stay awake, not sleeping, because I'm thinking about this.
So we get more lovable 12 and Bill banter.
Proposal, we need to get a closer look at it.
Good, yeah.
Plan, let's get eaten.
And so they do. However, in this moment, it is really distracting how the Doctor, while investigating, doesn't turn around once, and if Bill didn't throw the lantern off him, miracle that didn't break by the way, he wouldn't have even noticed that she got pulled down and could have died. Capaldi era, stop insisting that the Doctor is incompetent challenge. While down there, the creature spits out a hat and we get yet another unnecessary flashback to shit we've seen in the same episode. Like, come on! All of the Series 10 episodes I've done so far have done this. It's just getting fucking annoying. Especially since it was literally 10 fucking minutes ago! Ugh. So then they don't get eaten by the creature somehow and escape, and the Doctor figures out that someone has made a deal to keep luring poor people down there to be eaten by using these fish, and he questions the scam man we saw earlier.
He said he caught the fish himself. I bought pie off that guy. Fish pie.
Ate that pie. I like that pie.
And we get a pretty comedic moment where the Doctor asks him if he's seen a man with a tattoo of a ship while they're at the docks. Which is pretty humorous, and it leads us into the next scene naturally. And we even get a unique reaction to the Doctor's psychic paper.
You work for the palace.
Haven't heard that one in a while.
Bill really went from near the bottom of my companion ranking to near the top in just 3 episodes. I don't know if this is just more of a message of how bland in later episodes this series writer, or it's just a further showcase of how terribly written Clara is as a companion. So they investigate, and I do really like how in this moment the Doctor throws Bill into the deep end, sort of as a mini test of her quick thinking skills, but also he does not help their case at all, as he comes off as nothing but suspicious. I don't know if fake IDs were common back then, but surely this guy should act at least a little bit skeptical. But the scene does seemingly have some self-awareness about this.
Yes, we need to use code, otherwise anyone can walk in here and get you blabbing away like a fool.
But fucking hell, this man is an idiot. So the rest of the investigation scene actually goes pretty well. Pretty standard stuff we're used to seeing at this point, but it's still pretty good. And then they end up at the villain's house and we get an interesting point where the Doctor assumes that the villain is alien because he values human life so little. And we get a nice little subversion where we find out that he's just a regular piece of shit. But unfortunately, we then get this. Now let's get the most obvious out of the way. This is fucking iconic. The Doctor, a character who always stands up for justice, punching someone who just racially assaulted his friend. Iconic. But wouldn't this scene have been a lot more impactful if he let Bill stand up for herself in the scene by refusing to follow the guy's instructions or just chatting shit back to him? What makes you think you're better than me? Now, I get that he was angry and he let the rage of this guy's racism get to him, but considering how many moral grandstandings he has in this episode, you'd think he could have handled this more maturely. Maybe like a verbal shun or something. And if you wanted to keep the punch in, maybe have the Doctor try to reason with them, and the guy just continues to be more and more racist, and then the Doctor gets angry and punches him when he sees that this character is beyond reason because of his ignorant views. And the existence of this clip definitely isn't helping this episode's case.
People like you disgust me. You hate and you fear anyone who isn't the same as you. But we're British and we will fight you every step of the way. And in the end, though it will cost lives, lots of lives, we'll crush you lot.
Yes, that was a clip of Clyde Langer, a black character considerably younger than Bill, standing up to actual fucking World War II Nazis in a kids show. This episode could have easily played out a lot better if the Doctor let Bill stand up for herself instead of doing this. By the way, that episode of the Sarah Jane Adventures came out 7 years before this episode did. And another reminder, it was aired on CBBC. This episode has no excuses. I also literally had to fucking buy that off YouTube because high quality rips of the Sarah Jane Adventures do not exist. And it's a shame because the scene following directly after this is fantastic. The Doctor's interrogation skills seeping through the whole moment, showing how intelligent he is, and yet another moral grandstand is brilliant. His speech about the value of human life, it's utterly superb, and is a great showcase of how the Doctor is different to all other Time Lords by not seeing all other life as superior or inferior, but seeing everything as equal, something every other Time Lord doesn't do. Well, used to not do before they got ruined in Moffat's era, but I feel like having the Doctor punch the guy just undermines it completely, which is a shame because that whole scene was excellent and did show us how truly evil the villain is by straight up admitting he has zero compassion for other human life. Every Redditor ever. Then again, while it does show how evil the villain is, it definitely just makes him come off as a cartoonish bad guy by straight up saying he has no compassion. Like, come on, that's goofy. So they get thrown in with some bombs, and after a comedic scene of Bill screaming, they break out.
Why are you even asking?
I don't know the answers. Only idiots know the answers.
So we get another great moral scene where the Doctor forces Bill to make the decision on whether they let the creature go at risk of it killing people or let it suffer down there for more time. And this is another excellent moral scene for the episode. As weak plot-wise as this episode has been, the character stuff has been fucking sublime. Once more. So Bill makes the right choice and gets everyone off the ice. The Doctor somehow got his water suit back on and put the explosives next to the chains in like 5 minutes. The villain then gets reduced to more of a joke and falls into the terribly CGI ice and the creature escapes. And that's the main plot resolved. What? Did that sound like an anticlimax? Well, that's because it fucking isn't really. While this is a pretty simple resolution to the plot itself of this episode, this story has been a lot more character focused over plot, so I think that it's perfectly servable for this episode, especially since the ending decision has been built up through the whole story, by having Bill's character learn and grow in every scene she's in. So while from a purely story standpoint it isn't the most interesting way to resolve it, it's still fine, because of Bill's character growth in the episode. So the terribly CGI creature escapes, the Doctor makes one of the worst kids the heir to the CEO of racism so that they can live in the house, and they return to the university just so we can get another vault bunking from Nardole, which is just fucking great. I do actually like that Bill looks up the events in the past to see if they changed history, as that's a pretty interesting thing to do, and I'm surprised we haven't seen a character before do that. especially since they're all from the 21st century. I would say I'm surprised we haven't seen that after as well, but none of these planks we have currently are characters. I mean, Dan the Man will exist by the time this video is out. I could be wrong. I doubt it. My prediction is Dan will be Graham-esque, where he's likeable enough because of the actor playing him, but character-wise there's not much there. And the way Bill finds out that she saved the day capped off the story nicely, until we get yet another shitty vault bonking, which is just the usual standard shite. Seriously, we're only 3 episodes in and this shit is pissing me off already. So, that was Thick Ice. And unfortunately, yet again, this is just another blech Series 10 episode. But I can safely say that it's the best one I've reviewed so far. And the best episode I've reviewed in a while. Nowhere near as bad as How Do You Do, Fellow Kids. Only slightly better than the Piss Puddle episode. And the main reason this episode works so well for me is because of the character stuff. Because by far, this is some of the stuff I love to see the most. It keeps up Bill's continually growing character extremely well in this episode. Seriously, she has so much growth in this one episode alone, it's fantastic. At the start, she's completely against the Doctor's view on death and how to handle it, and by the end, she has the same viewpoint, and it was slowly built up through the story, and it was great to see throughout. And aside from him punching the racist, the Doctor's writing was pretty great in this episode as well. Unfortunately though, yet again, you can tell Capaldi is bored in this episode, and it continues to distract me immensely. And the plot in this episode is pretty weak as well. It's not ridiculously stupid like the pilot or the wasted potential like Smile. It's just kind of serviceable. But it still has a few glaring flaws, which bring this episode down quite a bit unfortunately. But still, overall, I like it, because Sarah Dollard is a great character writer. But she seriously needs someone to look over her plot writing. Up next is Who's There? As weak plot-wise as this episode has been, the character stuff has been fucking fuck!